Hey Mason, welcome along. How are you?
Peter, I'm doing very well, thank you. How are you?
Very good, very good. Well, thanks for coming along today. For those that are watching, this is Mason from Quality Mind. We're going to have a chat today. Mason and I have just met each other around some of the sales challenges, the B2B sales challenges that Mason's having. We're going to bring it to light, have a bit of a chat, and see what we can do to work through that today. So, Mason, just before we get into the specifics of your challenge, could you tell us just a little bit about Quality Mind, the setup, the way that you guys are approaching B2B sales at the moment, and then we'll dive into the challenge and see what we can do to help you out today.
100%. Yeah. So Quality Mind Global was started by Rich Maloney, the CEO. He's been coaching for over 20 years and he kind of got to the point where it was like, how do I impact the most people in the shortest amount of time? So he took the approach of group coaching and combined that with technology to have an impact on people that's sustainable by following, neuroscience and helping people overcome their own challenges, by helping and giving them the tools to overcome their challenges themselves. And we do that with a combination of group coaching and technology. So we have an app that helps with the clients outside of the session so that they can interact with the app, keep on top of their thoughts and feelings so that they've got that constant progression to move forward, rather than just having one like weekly coaching sessions. So we provide the tools to help people overcome their challenges. In terms of what the B2B looks like, we have coaches who come on board. They might be in the corporate space or just have a passion for helping people. They want to coach, but they don't have the system. So Rich has provided that system to help them start and scale their own coaching business. So these coaches would have access to the programs for their clients, the app and the technology, and then also help with marketing and lead generation as well, so that they can become a successful coach and shortcut the amount of time it takes to do all of these things anyway.
Fantastic. Very cool. Very cool. And you're the
Yeah.
first sales hire, are you?
I think there's been a couple, but yeah, I've came in, and yes, I'm essentially, yeah, the first. I'm the only one in at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. I mean, it's a very unique position, right? Like it's one thing to join a big sales team with lots of people and lots of support around you and those sorts of things. It's a whole other thing to found a business like Rich has or be a first sales hire like yourself and you tend to
Yeah.
face unique challenges. Being a first sales hire, I've been a first sales hire a couple times myself. Had to figure things out the hard way and that sort of thing. So anyway, why don't we get into challenges? What's the biggest challenge that you're having right now in the B2B sort of sales process that you're going through?
Yeah. Okay. So the first one would be, I feel like highlighting their pains so that they see the gap that's big enough from, the lack of what they have and then what we offer in terms of this actually cutting down the amount of time it takes for them to become a successful coach. I find myself sometimes going into telling mode where I just take them through the presentation because I'm so hyped up about it and there's so much value in it that I don't actually connect it to what they're after and how it can help them in depth. So that'd be the first one. I've got a couple others in mind as well, that I'd
So
love
let's
some perspective
so
on.
let's start there. I think it's really cool that you've identified that you need to kind of connect the challenges that they're having with the solution that you're talking about. I think that's a really good self-realization. But just to articulate that to everybody who's watching here today. So is the challenge that you're not closing as many sales as you would like to?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, cool. So you've kind of got the leads coming through. You're having sales conversations, but the percentage of closes you feel like could be higher than it is, and that's if we could kind of unlock a little bit of a higher close rate, that'd obviously move the dial for you as a sales rep, right?
That's right. Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
perfect, perfect, cool. So, um, you mentioned there that you were going through and kind of telling them with excitement everything that the platform does. You sort of
hmm
feeling a disconnect between the problem. Well, tell me about that. Like, how do you bring up the problems, or like when are you asking questions about them? How do you personalize or customize the conversation to them beyond just, showing show and tell, basically? Tell me about how that goes at the moment.
Yeah, so I started off just kind of because I am the first salesperson, there wasn't any structure or scripts that I had ready
Mhm.
for the B2B. So I would start off just talking to them about just things that didn't really relate to me being able to close them better. And then coming along, I've realized, and studying a few things, I've realized that you actually need to have a structure at the start to highlight their challenges so that then you can use that to close more effectively in the end. So I've been practicing like putting different questions together at the start to kind of see what it is they're looking for, what type of checklist they're looking for, in terms of starting a coaching business with or without Quality Mind, what they've done in the past. But this is where I need some more clarity on how to position myself, and also have a position of authority, because I am a little bit younger than a lot of the people who are wanting to start coaching. Like these guys are helping people out with life, right? And I'm a little bit younger. I haven't even experienced half the life that they've experienced. So there's a few things that I need to position effectively so that then I can close them. And I think that that's one of the gaps. But I usually ask the questions at the start now.
Yeah, okay, cool. So how long would a conversation typically go for? Like what would it be booked in the calendar for?
45 minutes.
45 minutes. Okay, cool. So give me an average breakdown of the 45 minutes. How long are you asking questions at the front? How long are you going through the demonstration, or what would like talking about what we
Yep.
do, and what else is in that mix, like as a percentage?
Yeah. Okay. So I think it would be about 10 minutes of talking at the start maximum, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure if that's a good amount. And then I'd go into giving them more clarity on what the business is. Before all of this, though, they watch a masterclass where Rich breaks down what the business model is in depth, in fair depth, except for the prices. So reflecting on it now, maybe I am just going over it again for no reason. And maybe I should be connecting more at the start. But at the moment, it'd be 10 minutes at the start, really, and then going through the presentation, closing them at the end, or yeah, going through the packages at the end, which would take around 10 minutes as well. But the chunk of it in the middle would be going through the presentation.
Yeah, cool. So 10 minutes of general chat. What's that make it? 25 minutes of showing them the product, and then 10 minutes of trying to close off the deal or close the sale, that type of thing. So
That's right. Yeah.
yeah,
Yep.
okay. Look, that's not a bad structure, right? As far as the setup of it. What probably could go to the next level, or potentially, right, like is what we do in those phases. And I like that you got that self-awareness little moment there where you're like, oh, maybe I am showing them what they've already seen, right? So for the first 10 minutes, right, they've already showed up on the call. The beautiful thing about a lead coming to you is you can kind of ask that question, hey, so what led you to being interested in coming along to this, like this conversation today? What was the core reason that you wanted to show up on this call? Right, because they've probably they booked in your calendar, right? They've got something in mind. They were curious about something. They want to learn about something. They were ready to buy. Who knows, right? Maybe they've got 3 specific questions. Maybe they saw 80% of the platform and they wanted to see how you go deeper on one particular area of it, right? Get that context, right? And that opening
Mm.
question, I feel like really gets to guide the rest of the conversation. Now, I do love that you've got 10 minutes, where you're chatting to them, maybe a little bit of rapport building type stuff, but no more than 1 or 2 minutes on that, right? It's like, so give us context here. You got stuff going on, I got stuff going on. Like why are we here to have this conversation, right? And so
Yeah.
following on from that, what can be good if you can weave it in early, a few kind of sales methodology type questions. Are you familiar with what a sales methodology is when I refer to that?
Please enlighten me.
So one of the most basic sales methodologies, right, is an acronym called BANT: budget, authority, need, and timing, right? Basically, what you want to do in one of these calls is try and get those questions asked in the smoothest possible way, right? So the ideal is the earlier you can ask it, the more like directional you can make the conversation if it kind of flows with things, right? So you imagine you've asked the question around why are they on the conversation, they've given you a bit of context. Okay, great. So if we were to, solve this, if you got, some budget aside to invest in a solution like this, if you got kind of a range on what that might look like, questions like that to kind of bring the budget to the surface.
Mm.
And or hey, in order to do something like this, we're probably looking at an investment around blah blah blah. Is that something that if we're able to solve your challenges that you might be open to? right?
I like that.
Um,
Yep.
so you're kind of asking the budget question without saying, "Oh, what's your budget?" Right? Like you're asking it in
Right.
a bit more of a smooth way that kind of brings to the surface the things that are actually interesting to know around that, right? So you've got budget, then you've got authority, which is like, okay, so if you were to go ahead with a solution like this, is this something that you just kind of a decision you make on your own? Do you have to check with your business partner, your life partner, your like, how do you go about making this decision, basically, right? So trying to bring that to the surface. I remember a founder I was working with a while ago, actually selling my services into her, and she said, "I don't buy anything on the call. I go away and I sit on it for 3 or 4 days, meditate, and then I make my decision." Great. Now I know that that's your decision making process. We've now brought that to the surface, right? She also had to check in with her
Mm.
business partner, right? So that was the other piece of authority. The next
Mhm.
step in that is need, right? So, what is their need, right? Like, why we kind of asked that in the initial question, but this is obviously the framework, and however you kind of get this to the surface, like, why do they need this, right? Like, why are they bothering to invest in something rather than just giving it a crack themselves, building their own app, building their own systems and processes? Why do they need that? What's the value in that to them? Let's bring that to the surface. And then timing is the T in the band structure there, right? So if you were to go ahead with something like this, when would it make sense to go ahead for you to make an investment like this? You know, like have you got momentum and you need to make a decision yesterday? You know, you don't have capacity to scale your business, you don't have the right processes to solve these sorts of things, and the problem and challenge is burning, so you need to make a decision now, or it's just something you're educating yourself about, you're kind of curious, you know, at the right time you'll go ahead and look at investing in something like this, but that might be in 6 months, right? So if you're
Yeah.
able to, and like I said, this is the most simple sales methodology. It's a really good starting place. There's lots more out there that go into lots more depth, but as a foundational structure, you know, why are we on this call covering off BANT within the call? I think that they're two principles for you to kind of take away from today. The next
Yeah.
thing that I would say, which you kind of called out when you were reflecting there as you were sharing on, they've already watched something, right? So they've already got context. So when we're figuring out why they're on the call, rather than kind of I know how to do the whole demonstration and show the whole thing or as much of it as possible or whatnot. If we're really specific on why they're on the call and what it is that they would like, maybe they don't even need to see any more of the product. Maybe they're sold on the product, right? Maybe they need to just actually understand the commercials and what that would look like. And that's the conversation they need to have. So maybe you skip the demo, right? Maybe you just show the part of the demo that's relevant to them, right? Like get clear
Mhm.
with those questions early on where you should directionalize your time. So, give you an example of something that happened to me as a sales rep. I got really, really good at doing software demos for a piece of software I was selling, right? I was doing 4 to 5 demos a day, and that I was getting told I was doing the right things. And then I had a sales coach come in and he said, "Why are you doing so many demos, right? Like, let's reduce that, right? Let's, you know, focus more on the conversational piece, only demo like product when you need to in order for them to evaluate it to make the decisions to buy, show them only the things that they need to, because you might have 10 features but only 3 of them are relevant. Let's show them those and skip the others, right? So I took that learning
Mm.
on board, and what happened was I went from 4 or 5 demos a day to 4 or 5 demos a week. And it was one of the key things that led to me doubling my average sale dollar value, and also closing a deal that was it was 8 times larger than I'd ever closed before, because I focused way more on the drivers that were leading to their decision making and understanding what they were and focusing on those, rather than here, have a look at the thing and figure out for yourself how you're going to get as much value for this. It's that flipping
Yeah.
psychology, you're really getting inside what's actually important to them, because at the end of the day, what they want more than the quality mind product is the results that it can give them. That's what they actually
Mm.
want. They want the outcomes, they want the way it's going to change their business, right? And so if we're able to connect those dots through band structures, through just showing them what they need, that's where we can really take the process to the next level.
No,
Making
I
sense
love
so
that.
far?
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And I love that structure to get clarity on it all. And that kind of allows you to minimize the objections at the end, right, as well. In terms of when you're talking about doing the demos, how you spread it out to 4 to 5 over the week, what does the sales cycle look like for B2B? Is it different depending on the budget, on the investment for them? Like obviously if they're making a bigger investment, does that mean that there's going to be more time that they have to take to think about it? How many calls should there be in between the setup? You know what I mean? Like does it change depending on their investment?
The answer is it changes all the time. the investment is a factor, that like the size of the investment is a factor,
Yeah.
but the size of the business is a factor. There's lots of things that can change what is a reasonable expectation, right? And so often founders and early stage sales hires are really curious what the benchmarks and all those things are. I actually say let's leave benchmarks and averages and stuff going out in the industry for when you've got a little bit more momentum, when you're getting going. Let's find out what's a good result for you, right?
Mhm.
So if your average sales time, it takes you on average a month to close a deal, right? And you're able to bring that down to 3 weeks, great job. You're taking steps forward. You're trying things to optimize it for yourself, right? And if you take that mindset rather than worrying about, oh, is this too much or too little, we've just got to make sure it's profitable, and makes sense as far as a baseline business structure. And when you've got more data, that's when you can kind of look at, well, okay, like, is this too long? Is this too short? And you can start applying more deeper sales methodologies that'll give you context as to, you know, does the, should is this too long? Are there too many steps in the process, right? Basically,
Mhm.
I would say right now, go with the mindset of what do they need to make an investment decision for them, right?
Yeah.
And if you meet whatever that is and do that with, the structure that I've spoken about, with some rigor and focus, build up some data and some runs on the board. From there, you can start looking at, well, what's realistic, right? And checking that against the core business model, which is, if you look at it from a sales leadership perspective, right? Like my lens, I'd be coming in and going, right, well, your salary is this, the gross profit is this, like how much margin are we making based on the time that you invest, to make X amount of sales, and how does that whole overall business model work? And right now you don't have enough data to say, you got
That's
one
right.
salesperson in the team, right? If you scale that up, if you're getting hundreds and thousands of these going through your process, then you're going to start like the speed at which you can optimize this will grow significantly.
That's great. Yeah, I love that. It's like, so just reflecting on that, it's pushing out all of the benchmarks and everything and just doing it based off what works for the person. Is that correct?
Yeah, what works for the person, and you're basically in a discovery phase for you right now, right? Like, not only are you trying to do your best as a salesperson, but you're actually trying to discover what's a good result, right?
Yeah,
If you
that's
start
right.
discovering what a good result is, then you add some more people into the process, then you can discover ways to optimize that result, right? If you're trying
Mhm.
to go, well, this is what it should be, but you have no data to, get there, you might, like, I think the path is just a little bit, you miss things. I think if you're like, here's how it needs to be, and actually you go through the process, you find out what works for them, and you go, actually, there's no margin in this. This business model doesn't work. We've got too many calls in it. We need to do something for this to work. Or this is working, but we really need to make more. So let's play around with the pieces, right? So for now, yeah, I'd be encouraging you, really just get curious around what works for them, move the dial up however you can, start collecting data on that, and then, after you've got some more data, then sit back and go, okay, how can we reflect on this to change and move the dials?
Yeah, yeah. And should you be sending emails and messages in between the calls? Is that a good way to keep them engaged, or do you think just leave it to the calls? Like, what's the engagement in between the calls? Is there anything? And does that help?
Uh, the answer is it depends, right? It's another
Okay.
iteration, it's another experiment, right? Like, if you feel like it makes sense, like, test it, right? Like, let's test it. You, the temptation I see in sales is that people try and systemize stuff too fast, right? It's like
Okay.
if you start building all of your systems before you've actually iterated and found one that works and is solid and reliable and gets the results you need, you're starting to build out a system that's just going to fall on its head later on, right? So it's like
Mhm.
if you feel like, hey, in between these calls, if I sent them a piece of content, if I gave them a follow up, or maybe you do it permission based, right? Something I love to do is like, okay, so if your decision making process is that you talk to your partner, which you'll probably do at some point over the weekend, you like to think about it for a week, and then we've got to check it, and then you'll let us know, well, would it make sense for me to give you a quick check-in call at blah? Or, would it be helpful if I sent you blah? Or, do you know what I mean? Like, you can test it out by
Yeah.
kind of asking them what they need, but also having a guess as well. Well, okay, they didn't say they needed anything, but I'm going to drip them this piece of content, or I'm going to, like, send them off an interview that Rich did on, one of the successful case studies or whatnot, right? Like, they're all things to test with. But there's so many things you could do. Don't try and run too
Yeah.
many experiments at once. Let's take your sales
Yeah.
conversation for your 45 minutes to the next level as your absolute number one priority off the back of this call. If you can
Okay.
move the dial on that, get some more results, close at some higher rates, right? Like you're moving forward, right? Then we can stack other things
Hmm.
onto it. And just coming back to that and being a little bit conscious of our time here today, the last thing I want to talk to you about is those last 10 minutes, right? The closing. So if you haven't got
Yeah.
through BANT, obviously any of those other BANT related questions at the closing portion, go and bring those up. But I do like that you kind of 5 to 10 minutes minimum at the end of the call, particularly if you're actually trying to go for the close there and then on the conversation.
Mm.
So a couple of rules that I like to have, always ask the closing question, right? Like, so what does it look like between here and you making a decision whether or not to go ahead, right? Like, what does that pathway look like for you, right? Question number one. And question number two, which if they haven't bought, by saying, yeah, I'm in, I'm good to go, or they've told you whatever the process is, always book the next thing or agree on the next thing, right? And if
Yeah.
they resist to that, that's a great orangey red flag, right? So it's like, hey, so you're talking to your partner on the weekend, and then you're going to sit on it for a week, and then you're good to go. What if we just put 10 minutes in the calendar for us to have a quick phone chat and discuss, any final questions you have, or if you're all good, we can just press the go button and get you started. Does that sound fair enough? Right? Something
Mm.
that's like, what's this next thing, right? Because if it's like, oh, I'll get back to you when I get the chance, and then you kind of ask for a timing piece and they're really resistant, it's like, okay, so you said that you were interested. You're not really up for like booking something in. What's happening there? Am I missing
Yeah.
something? Like, what am I missing here right now? Some of the time, people just hate booking follow-up calls, but I would say you can probably objection handle about 75-80% of them successfully to booking the next thing, right? Whether it's booking in the calendar, whether it's actually this isn't right for me right now, but I'm focusing on this. And when I reach here, it will make sense, right? When I quit my job, whatever it might
Mm.
be, then it will make sense for us to, for us to potentially invest in this in 3 months' time. Okay, great. So how about I give you a call in, around that time? Oh, awesome. What if we penciled some time in? Oh, no, just give me a call then. Great. All right. So I'll stick it in the CRM to give you a call in about 3 months' time. Fantastic, right?
Yeah.
You've got to organize, because one of the worst things time wasters for salespeople is this follow up back and forth, like emails, trying to find time to catch each other, calling each other, missing each other, blah blah blah. Schedule it if
That's
you
right.
can. If you can't, like get an agreement on what the follow up is, and if they're really truly resistant, like maybe a soft email or something, but let it go, right? Like realize if you do this enough times, you'll start to see, yeah, these guys are never going to close, right? And so for you as a salesperson, you want to be like just really principally thinking about you as an early stage salesperson, as a first sales rep. You want to be asking great questions, and you want to be spending time with people who actually have the means and the need to buy. Because if they
Mm.
don't, you're doing a marketing branding exercise, right? Which is not your job, which is fine. It's
Hmm.
great and advocacy, but like for you as a sales rep, the way that you get the highest numbers, hit your quotas, and you get your commissions is spending time with people who have the means and the need to buy, particularly if they have the means and need to buy now.
Mm. Okay. And you'd figure that out early days. I think that's where the gap is doing the band at the start to figure out if they do have the means and needs to buy
Exactly.
at
If
the
they say to
start.
you, look, I
Yeah.
just don't have the investment for this. Okay, totally understand. So what brought you to coming? Oh, I just love to educate myself. No worries at all.
Right.
Here's a piece of content that you should go away and have a look at. And when the finances side sorts out for you, maybe we can have another conversation. Do you have a feeling about when that could be? Right?
Yeah.
That's what sales methodology is for, right? Like early qualification, respecting their time, respecting yours, and giving you a structure to work out. Do both of us invest more time in this, or do we keep moving? If we do keep investing more time in this, let me make it as personalized, as specific, as helpful as I possibly can for you.
So good, Peter. That's really good. Thank you for the clarity on that. I've got a strategy session this afternoon, so I'm going to use that approach,
Perfect.
the band, and I'll see how it works. I'll put it into action straight away, play around with
Fantastic.
it, trial and error, and I'll let you know. I'll let you know how it goes.
No, I appreciate that. Thanks very much, Mason. It's great to have you on.
Thank you, Peter. Appreciate it.